Record. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's session of Beyond the Cloud. We unfortunately are having to pre-record because Facebook Live will not let us on because it's just so busy because everybody's working at home. So we will post this afterwards. So if you're watching this, we're not live and unfortunately can't answer live questions. So we'll just do a quick introduction. I'm Tanya, Health Cloud Bookkeeping Services, and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. And Stacy, you were here next, so you can go next.
So I'm Stacy Stanley Young, bookkeeper and owner of Stanley Young Business Strategies, located right in the center of Canada, in Winnipeg. We focus on bookkeeping for the small and medium-sized business and reluctantly into tax.
Oh, reluctantly. Love that. You picked a bad year to start too, didn't you? The reluctantly into tax.
Well, we started last year, thank the Lord. Because last year we did a lot of, why should I take my taxes to you? And this year it's like, oh yeah, you did a good enough job last year. Here you go. So.
Well, at least you've got your processes down from last year, which is good that you're not trying to wing it and then not really know what you're doing while you're winging it, trying to do it virtually either, right?
So. Yeah, exactly.
All right, Jessica, you were next.
Hi, Jessica Fox from Florida Virtual Bookkeeper. I specialize in service-based businesses using QBO, and I'm just happy to be here today.
Awesome. And last but not least, Deb, who has come in from the out.
Yeah,
did I say that right?
Out, and I was late. It's like, what can you do? You know, you got clients on the phone. Then I'm Deb Fletcher. I'm located in Colorado. Obviously, you can see from the picture behind me. And I specialize in e-commerce accounting and working with Shopify, Amazon, and the rest, and sales tax nexus issues. But this week, of course, like everybody else, I'm dealing with tons of questions concerning COVID and the opportunities of getting loans, PPP, all of that information, or even unemployment for my self-employed and gig worker clients that I have in the States. So I don't know how that's affecting the Canadian portion of our group, but I don't know if Jessica's going through that either, but I've got a lot of calls about that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our EI is no longer, because what we did up here in Canada is they said everybody who applied for EI March 15th and onwards is going to be moved over to the Canadian Emergency Response Benefits. So the CERB, we call it. That opened on Monday. So they said if your birthday is January, February, March, apply Monday. Tuesday was, April, May, and June. So they staggered it. And then from today onwards, anybody can apply anytime because they didn't want the systems to crash with everybody applying all at once, which happened yesterday when the banks opened for the bank loan. So it's been a busy week here too with that. The bank loan, the Canadian Emergency Business Account, I think the CEBA, opened yesterday, and I applied through my bank, Scotiabank, at 7:30 in the morning, and I went online to go look something up in the afternoon, and they had crashed. Because it wasn't staggered, so I don't know if anybody else had any issues. It was up about half an hour later.
Well, that's not bad.
It was just, I couldn't get into anything to even look up my account. The whole site was just like, sorry, experiencing technical difficulties. So
yeah. When I went in, I think I did my application. It was in the morning, but probably around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I didn't have any issues. The only issue I had was the programmers did not take into account that some people have double last names. And so it wouldn't allow me to put a space in between my name. And once I took out the space, I went, oh yeah, okay, no problem, you can hit next. But if I didn't put in that space, or if I put in that space, it's like, no, you have an error on your page. Okay. So that took me 10 minutes to figure out how to spell my own name. But otherwise, it was fine. So, I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I'm just waiting for the automatics to go, oh no, your application isn't the same as the name on your bank account.
Of course.
But I'm hoping a human will go, oh no, let's not be an idiot now. And they wouldn't even accept a dash.
Really? That's crazy. There's a lot of people that have hyphenated or double names. I mean, I'm only on Facebook. My real name for everything is just, Tanya Hilt, but on Facebook I was Hackman. That's my maiden name. I was Hackman for so long, and I only have one Facebook account. I tried to do two under, Tanya Hackman and Tanya Hilt, so a personal one or like a hyphenated, and then just a business one for Tanya Hilt, but it was just too much to manage. Right. So I said, forget it. I'm very transparent. I share pretty much almost anything anyway. Like I feel, if I share, no matter what it is, it's going to help somebody. And if you don't like what I've had to say, don't listen. You know, and I don't put anything out there that I don't want the whole world to see anyway. So if there's something I want private, it stays private.
Mhm.
So I figure if that's the rules I follow anyway, what's the point of having 2 Facebook accounts?
So I do have to admit, I used to. I can't remember the password, so I haven't been into my old Facebook or the double Facebook account. I made one under my cat's name, and my cat unfortunately had the same initials as my father-in-law, and unfortunately has the same birthday, which I totally forgot about. And so suddenly every year it's like I feel as if my father-in-law is getting all these birthday wishes, and I'm like, oh. But the only reason why I have that one, and I, like I say, I haven't been in it in ages, I haven't had time, is I like playing some of those Facebook games.
Right.
But I really hate having to post to the wall and get all your friends to click here. And so I created this one. I'm like, I'll friend anybody. I don't read the news feed. I just want to go and play the game. And all of these people are just as obsessed about playing the game as I am. So they click all the time, and I can actually advance forward in my game.
Oh, there you go.
But-
Yeah, see, the only games I play really, and I saved them one, and I haven't had a chance in ages, is Texas Hold'em. And I just, it's been about 2 years, and
Yeah.
I could still have, I was up to about 5 million in, of course, Facebook fake money on
Mhm.
that, and it could all be gone for all I know, like people taking it, because it's just been literally like 2 to 3 years since I've even had a chance.
Yeah.
And then now I do song pop because I'm big on music trivia, so I do song pop.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and that's, I just play that on my phone,
Yeah.
and I don't sign in through Facebook. It's just like through, I can't remember how I got it, but
Yeah, and I don't think I've been on that account for like 8 years. So I'm sure there's a million birthday messages for, whatever. I now play a whatever. It's on my iPad. It's what we call a grinder game. You have to keep going in and touching it every few hours to get it to go forward, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't have to annoy any of my friends with it, which is
so that's nice. So you only have to
Yeah.
annoy yourself by going on every few hours.
right. Exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I know Jessica, you're not even on Facebook, you're under Bandora Fox.
Yes, that's
So-
my middle name. What
Okay, because I was
happened-
going to ask you, while we're
Yeah.
talking about that, what is the Bandora? But that's your middle name. Okay, very nice.
Yes, it's my middle name because the problem is that I have a unfortunate past history with a stalker.
Oh.
And ever since he was released from jail a few years ago, anytime that I use my first name and my real photo, I am found. And there's no amount of blocking that helps because they just create a new profile. So I found that just using my middle name and having a minifigure as my photo instead of my face has been effective.
Well, that's good. That's scary. Wow. But that's good that it's effective and that you're not having to deal with those additional stresses either, because that's, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what a very pretty middle name.
Yeah, it's very nice.
But it's a unique middle name. I take it your stalker hasn't figured that out yet?
Yes, it does not, because what happens is that it's not my given middle name.
Ah, okay.
I changed my name when I got married, and that's when I legally adopted this name. So he was in my past when I was single, and the reason why he had gone to jail was because he had worked for the Social Security office and had used the government database to pull up my information.
Ooh.
Only reason why he got in trouble with the law, because just the fact that being obsessed with somebody is not enough to put you in jail, but using government computers is. So he only knows my middle name given by my parents, which is no longer in any of my identification documents.
Wow.
Wow.
That's intense.
That's the type of thing that you only hear about in like made for TV movies. Like,
I mean, it was never as glamorous as all that. I mean, this was over 10 years ago. There were some creepy, scary moments, but most of it was cyber.
Okay.
And I didn't even realize it was that bad until I had moved away from the city that this person lived in. And I had a new job. I had just gotten married. And at that job, sheriffs and agent from the Department of Justice showed up to ask me about this person and, pick them up from they just brought like a picture of mugshots. It's like, can you point them out? And I didn't know why they were asking these questions until I was summoned to testify in the court. And in the court, then they're asking me, did you know that this person accessed the your social security file on this date? No. And they just
How
gave
would
me
you
a
know
list of
that?
all of these dates where they had used the government's computer to look me up. And I'm like, well, that explains why I was getting mail from this person. I was wondering how they have found my address.
Yep.
You know what? It's probably almost a blessing in disguise that you didn't know until in court, because then, you know, even the fear that you probably would have been trying to process this up. I just can't imagine trying to process this afterwards. At least, you know, he was caught versus finding out with him still out there. But geez.
Yes, because it had been kind of tense that last year that I lived in Miami. We had been in the same social circle, the same church group. We had met through that church group. And it had gotten creepy enough that I changed my phone number. I changed friendships. I stopped attending certain events to avoid him. And then I attended one last event to announce, hey, goodbye, everybody. I'm moving 2 hours away. And then I come to find out from somebody there, it's like, oh, he's talking about buying a house in the town you're moving to. And I'm like, no.
Okay, so let me ask you, do you want me, because we are not live, do you want
don't
me
need
to
to
take
edit
this
this
part
out
out?
because there's no names or anything given. So maybe my
Okay.
story will be beneficial to somebody. Although
Okay.
the average person will probably find it boring. They'll be like, this has nothing to do with accounting or COVID recovery or disaster loans. But
Okay, good.
you
good.
can edit it out if you want, but I'm okay with that staying.
It's up to you, because I know you've mentioned your Facebook name before, which is kind of why I mentioned it, because I know you've mentioned it before in here, but I decided to ask if you want that cut out, I can cut it out.
I don't really know that this person will be looking in YouTube accounting videos.
Well, it's not like
I am in
tagged your
enough of
face.
them, and I have my own YouTube channel
Right.
because back then, this was years before I started my own bookkeeping business.
Okay.
So back then
okay.
I was in a completely different industry, and as far as I know, this person has no idea what I'm up to these days.
Okay, perfect.
I don't think he even knows
Okay.
my married name.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. Just had to make sure that we, you know,
Oh, yeah.
I clarified that, because
Appreciate that.
there's a very different thing by, you know, like sharing and forgetting that, you know, we could potentially be showing this.
And you know, when I first started joining Beyond the Cloud, I was worried when it's like, oh, this is gonna end up on YouTube. But then I realized, really, what are the odds? And if it is, you know, I feel like I can handle it, you know. But now I have my own YouTube channel where I say my first name. So
Right.
if I'm gonna be found, it's gonna be there.
Right, and that's it, because I don't tag. All I do is I tag like accounting things. I don't tag each of our names at all when I post it up there.
Yeah.
So, okay, good. And then it's only in Bookkeeper's Corner that you have to be in Bookkeeper's Corner to see it there, where, you know, somebody might know who you are because you're in there. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm very glad that it worked out and that you're very safe and that you don't have any of these worries anymore. So
yeah, it's just sad that I feel like I always have to like censor myself and do security audits on my profile. Like nothing can be public. Even if I am, you know, wanting to share a fundraiser, it has to be just with my friends. Right now I have a really huge long list of friend requests just because I really screen somebody before I accept them. Even people from accounting groups. I have lots of accountants that some make, you know, are people that watch this. And I will say, if you send me a friend request and I haven't replied, this is why. It's because you're in that probation period.
right.
When I feel safe enough, I'll open the gate.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Like, to be honest, we should really be careful what we're sharing anyway because of identity theft. That is huge, especially, and I think it's harder in Canada than it is in the States, just with some of the difference of the laws. But I mean, I remember here, my daughter was young, so let's say 15 plus years ago, I've heard that even then, so it's even easier now that people then were having their homes taken out from under them because somebody was able to get their information because they had one of those readers in the briefcase, walk past, you know, just grab people randomly, go online, apply for a mortgage, and then all of a sudden your bank's being taken, it's being foreclosed because you haven't paid your mortgage. And people are going like, what mortgage? What are you talking about? So, you know, identity theft it's very real. It's very scary. It is one of the top crime industries. There's, you know, weapons, drugs, human trafficking, and identity theft. It's the top four.
And I've been a victim of that for multiple times over. Even when I was in college, you know, my debit card had been hacked and I had to put a lock on my credit. So now I have all like credit monitoring from all these different companies. Some are the ones that I signed up for, but now every time there's a data breach, that's how they, you know, try to make things right, is they give you free credit monitoring.
Right.
So
that
being
continues.
part of, you know, like in the US, Equifax had a huge data breach a while back. So I got credit monitoring from them.
Yeah,
And
something credit crawl or something like that, wasn't it? Because we got the same thing from them.
something like that. And then just a few months ago in September, a website that I shop from, they had a data breach. So then I got the notification. So like not too long ago, my husband and I were toying with the idea of buying a car. And when we went to the dealer just to see what they had to say, I got 17 alerts in my phone letting me know that my credit file was accessed. So now nobody can do anything without me knowing.
Well, and I was just going to say that what you can do as well, and I know like our bank up here has added that in, so I check monthly, but what I used to do is I used to check every 6 months with Equifax and TransUnion. I was just saying, well, I'm checking TransCanada, TransUnion. One of them was a credit company, and one of them was like a loan company, and one was actual credit. So yeah, TransUnion and Equifax said all I did is I wrote in, said I have been a victim of identity theft because I have twice. People have tried to get me. And so what they do is that back in those days anyway, is they would put a note on it, and they would actually, I would give them my cell phone number. So if anybody applies for any credit, they have to call my cell phone. So if I'm sitting there applying for a car loan, I'm face to face, I know when they walk in the back room, even if they say, well, yes, I've seen your ID, if they don't call my cell number, they actually will hear it from me. I said, you're supposed to call the number on that alert. Please call it.
Yes,
so
I used to have a lock before where I used to have a lock in my credit a few years ago where I couldn't get any instant credit anywhere because they needed to do a mail verification. So the credit bureau will send me a letter, and until I reply saying, yes, I did apply, they wouldn't release the information. Which is great, but in this day and age, when we want instant gratification, I'm fine with the million alerts I get on my phone. I have all these services, and they all seem to have my back now. Well, but it's crazy because even my business credit card a couple of months ago, just in February, I had some fraudulent charges on it, and the only thing that's on it is my business subscriptions, QuickBooks, Rewinds, all of those apps. So I don't know which of those apps got hacked because I don't even carry it with me. So it goes to show how prevalent that is.
Absolutely. Well, and I love the fact that the bank, so I know with my bank, any one of our bank accounts or credit cards that's used, again, I get the, the alerts right away. So I know when my family's left the grocery store, because I get the alert, I'm like, oh, look, this is what they bought, right? And whatnot. But it actually did come in handy because somebody got a hold of it was our personal credit card. Unfortunately, this happened when my daughter was in Europe, and they cut off all 3 that were attached to the account when I called, and then she had to call me going, I just went to use it and I'm stuck here. I have no money. Her bank card won't work. So she ended up having to borrow money from her friend or one of the teachers that we paid back afterwards. It was just bad timing, but they had charged $100 to a Max Milk, which is now a Circle K. So I guess it was a Circle K in Montreal, which is 6 hours away from where I am. So I called the bank immediately. They were barely out of the parking lot by the time they had put the stop on the credit card because I saw it immediately. I called them. They immediately put the hold on it, found out. And because at first, the first guy said, are you sure this wasn't you? And I said, I haven't left my house. I haven't been to a Circle K. It's my credit card number. And then he escalated me to somebody right away. They said, oh yes, it was like $100 even at a gas station. And we can see it's in Montreal, not where you are. Oh, no. I'm sorry, my phone, did you guys can hear somebody's trying to Facebook message me. She doesn't realize I'm on here. So we just have to wait for that to go away.
She's probably wondering why you aren't on Facebook Live.
It could be.
Okay? Exactly. They can't get in the out now.
No. She's got to join this way.
That's funny.
Yeah, but
no, I have my credit locked down too.
Yeah, and it's good that again we have this technology that it can happen so quickly because it's so important. It's so important. So you've had same issues then, Deb? Oh gosh, I don't know how many years ago it's been, but Colorado became part of the
identity theft concerns, and they gave us the option to lock down your credit immediately when it became available. And I just said, sign me up. And it's been, I don't know how many years now, 15, 20, whatever the number's been. And I just locked it immediately. And then with each one, you log in to each one, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, and they give me a PIN. So when I want to go in and I need my credit looked at, I just give them the PIN number I have, and they can go in and, or if I just want to do it specifically, like if I'm going to hit 3 or 4 different things that I know is going to happen, I can give one PIN to each one with the name, and they'll lock it down to only those parties can come in with that PIN. So, and I've been doing this forever. So yeah, I don't worry about it.
Well, and it especially puts us at risk, just like Jessica said, like, look at what we're doing these days, that because we're working, 10 years ago, we were working in desktop. How many subscriptions did we have coming off? Maybe once a year for our desktop subscription if we paid annually, once a month if you decided to go monthly, then you've got your annual tax program. We back in those days, you still weren't paying necessarily monthly for your Outlook.com or whatever, Microsoft 365, whatever they call it. You were still likely either probably using the program that came with your computer when we bought it, because you paid extra to get that version in there. These days, everything is on subscription. There is probably 20 to 30 different subscriptions we come off. And then you're right, that opens us up to so much more. So it's just even more important that we be careful, like using things like, LastPass with this, our softwares, and Nord, to make sure that we're using a VPN and this credit alert. So, and again, not sharing anything you don't want the whole world to see.
Right. The funny thing is it can get easy to get on. I've had clients where, suddenly they're getting monthly charges, $5 here, $7 there from 7 different companies. And then when we go to Google those companies, we're like, they're all going back to the same place. What is this for? And he goes, I don't know, only to find out that it actually was fraudulent charges, right? Over the course of a couple months, it was like $2,500. But if you legitimately want to get off of these things, it's impossible. Like it really is. He goes, I've tried canceling the credit card. I've tried talking to the credit card company to say, like, these are not me, these are fraudulent. How do we fix this? And they couldn't for some reason. Death does not cancel a credit card. I helped clean up another bookkeeper's practice when he passed away, and the wife's looking at me going, I had nothing to do with his practice, so I don't know anything. Like, I don't even know who the clients are. I don't know what to do. We look at his credit card statement, which was strictly the business credit card, and we phoned the bank and we're like, okay, we'll cancel it upon death. And then the next month we get another bill, and they managed to push through all of these automatic subscriptions. And the thing was, so she then had to get on the phone, and she's like, okay, well, I'm getting your name from the credit card. This is who we are. We need to cancel the subscription. And they're like, well, we need to talk to Billy. And she's like, he's dead. Well, that's the only person that we can talk to. You don't have the authority to cancel this.
Are they going to do a seance to talk to him?
And it's not even legit charges.
Right. Well, and it took forever. It must have taken her 2-3 months of going through the whole thing, and then she had to process whatever form they sent, and then she would send it back as the executor of the estate, if you even want to call it that. We won't get into the will or no will problem, but she then had to send death certificates to all of these people. We finally got it cleaned up, but it took forever. Right.
And you could have just close the account with the credit card?
But we did. And then when we phoned the bank and said, well, why did you push these through? Like, we've closed this credit card. And they're like, oh, the automatics can get pushed through.
Well, and you know what?
Problem, not mine.
Well, we were appalled.
I had a personal credit, like that personal credit card that got hit with $100. When that got canceled, it automatically moved over, because I went in, I called everybody and made changes. And then there was one place that it was like Weight Watchers. I totally forgot about them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not using the online app anyway. I'm manually keeping track of everything. And I'm like, I don't really need that, because I've got my own recipes that we use and all of that. And so I thought, I'm just not going to bother updating it. And then it'll cancel on me. Oh no, that transferred over automatically. which I thought, that's interesting. I didn't think that was allowed to happen.
Well, the transferring automatically is, you're right. That one I wouldn't have expected.
Yep.
Them turning around and trying to re-up it and emailing you and go, oh, there seems to be a problem. Your credit card declined.
That's what I was expecting.
Right.
Sure.
Would have totally made sense. But that would have had to have happened on the bank's part.
I think so. I think so. But it's so easy that fraudulent charges can get through like that. And I think that's, even more important. Let's bring this back to like an accounting. If your books are up to date and you have somebody working for you reconciling, and it's interesting because we took over a set of books and we, are digging down in it, and we've seen this, and it had been on the clients, like the ask client list for a while, these charges. And so I finally got to it and I said, let's Google it. Let's Google it. Let's see what it is. Because she's like, I don't know what this is, but it must be legit. So she said to keep it there. And I Googled it and I said, all they offer is, and they're a US, it seemed to be a US company, but all they offer is merchant, like the credit card machines, merchant terminals. So I said, do you have one of those there? And she says, well, no, we don't. They actually stopped using that one. She said, I have no idea. So she called them. She had returned the equipment 12 years prior. They automatically kept it going because she didn't actually say, please cancel it. The returning of the equipment wasn't enough because to realize. So they were charging her for equipment she never had. They're backdating paying her. We're talking over $5,000, I think, that they've got to pay her back. But the interesting part was, and she kept talking to me, she was arguing different things. Well, my other bookkeeper always did it this way. And I said, you know what? That was not the proper way. What the other bookkeeper used to do, and this is actually when she stopped arguing with me over these little things. Well, the other bookkeeper did it this way, and she finally realized, okay, he might not have been the great person he thought he was. Like, we pulled out her AR list and her AP. There was stuff still sitting in there again from almost 10 years ago. 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. He's not going through this at year end. She's like, well, the accountant didn't catch it. The accountant looks at the top numbers. They don't look at the detail. This is our job to look at the detail. But what was happening is they were just batch entering just by the credit card, doing one journal entry, batch in the statement numbers, and that's it. So now she finally appreciates why we're having her put every invoice, why we tie every invoice, every receipt to every charge. And she finally sees that and her eyes are open. But I'll tell you, for 6 months, it was every single month. Well, the previous bookkeeper never had me do that. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Well, so anybody out there watching, this is why, this is what we do. We will find things that you are paying for. We will find them quicker if you can get everything to us quicker and not just tell us, well, it must be legit. It must be legit. Look into it, keep it up to date, and then you can at least stop that stuff. So there, we tied it back to accounting.
Yay. Oh my, that.
And I'm sure we all have stories. We all have stories. There was one story of a boot camper who the books hadn't been done in quite some time. Again, they brought it to the boot camper to do. And I'm not going to mention like anybody by name or by country or whatever to save them. If they want to share, they can share. But it turned out that an employee was grabbing automatic e-transfers and depositing them into her own bank account. That was not caught because the bookkeeping wasn't up to date. The accounts receivable wasn't up to date. Everything wasn't balanced. So until this bookkeeper got everything and caught everything up, they had no idea. So that person, it turns out, was being charged for fraud. They had actually defrauded several other companies, and I think there was about a total of $100,000 by the time they caught up to this person. But that again was several years. And they had no idea. So again, really important to have a proper bookkeeper with, if you can get somebody with a certification, that they've, we have to take tests if we're certified. It doesn't mean not everybody that does a grade is certified, because there's still, they might not choose to join through the certification, but make sure that they know what they're doing. Maybe like look for some tests, ask some questions, make sure that they're double checking. If they're not asking you for receipts, for things or not asking things, maybe that kind of might, ring some bells that maybe they're not paying such close attention. So I know in the States it's a little different. I don't think you guys have to. In Canada, because of our HST, our federal taxes, we literally have to have the receipt for everything, and it has to have certain things on it. So I know we're a little stricter. What are you guys like in the States? Because I don't want to say this blanket thing and have somebody from the States watch it and be like, what? And then turn around and like cancel a good bookkeeper services with a good bookkeeper, because you guys don't have to do that. So are you guys as stringent?
We are not as strict, and most bookkeepers that I know, they don't look at receipts at all. It's something that I leave it as an option for the client. I explain why it's important and why I strongly recommend that they do. But some of my clients don't want to be bothered by it, and then I have it in my, again, engagement letter that I am processing this without verification, that I did not view source documents, and that I am processing the data based on what they tell me. So that way they understand. I make it clear also in my client handbook that if they choose not to pass me the source documents, the responsibility is on them, because I only have one client that is really good about sending them to me. And the only reason why they do is because they've been audited before and they don't want to go through that hassle again.
Right.
But everybody else are like, oh, I shouldn't have to. And my accountant says that the statements should be enough. So,
So
well, just sign here.
So then,
the audit hits, boy, the whole perception changes.
Yes.
it does. So then let me ask for each of you here, what do you think then? And again, so the people are watching, Stacy and myself are Canada, Jessica and Deb are the States. So again, we've already confirmed things are different. What would be the top things? So let's go with you guys first, Jessica and Deb, for the States. What would be the top things that you think that people should look for in a quality bookkeeper? Some things that maybe they might do that, you know, that you guys should be doing, that somebody, you know, that might be a good indication as to whether they're working with a good bookkeeper or not.
Jessica?
Oh, I go first? Okay.
You go first.
Sure. Well, one of the things that, you know, from the conversations that I've had with clients when they compare me with their previous bookkeeper is somebody that demonstrates the knowledge of accounting but can still explain it in plain English. Because they've had bookkeepers in the past that use big words, accrual, balance sheet, debits, credits, and the client is like, whoa, sounds fancy. No idea what they're talking about. And then the bookkeeper does not understand debits and credits, and the books are a total mess. They need to not only have an understanding of the accounting fundamentals, but needs to understand the software. Right now, I am in a cleanup from a very experienced bookkeeper that has 30-year career, and everybody loves her, but because she does not know QuickBooks Online, the books are a disaster.
Yes.
Because there are journal entries to undeposited funds and accounts receivable and accounts payable and all these things that you should not be using journal entries for.
Right.
And then you want a bookkeeper that takes the time to ask questions. Because some clients, when they come to me, they're like, why do you keep coming back to me asking for clarification on things? I never heard back from my bookkeeper. It's like, well, in that case, do you feel confident about the numbers that the bookkeeper gave you before? She was just putting them, whatever. So I could go into a really long rant, but from the perspective, if I was a business owner looking for a bookkeeper, I want somebody that understands accounting, understands the right way to do it in that software, because they're not all made the same, and somebody that keeps open communication, that does not assume, and that can keep me informed in plain English, because business owners are not interested in learning a foreign language to understand their finances.
Perfect. Awesome. Deb, anything to add to that?
The only thing I'd add is audits. And I stand up with my clients on every audit. And it's whether it's sales tax, payroll, general business, workers' compensation, you name it. That's where I inform my clients. And I always talk to them and say, you don't need to worry about it today, but you're not going to be audited today. The audit is going to come a year, 2, 3, even 4 or 10, sales tax wise, 10 years later. This is why we need to put documentation into the notes of whatever software you're using, so we know what happened today. So when 10 years from today, when we're going through the audit, we understand why we did it this way. And that's what I tell my clients. Okay, it doesn't matter what bookkeeper you get, but are they going to stand there and back the numbers with you, with the auditor, as you're live going through it? And Jessica hit on many, many excellent points.
Yeah.
But that's the only piece to what she said that I would add is just for me and my clients, I'm always focused on the audit because I have been working so long and I have went through so many audits, and I was working with Price Waterhouse before it was Price Waterhouse Coopers and Liebert. I was with the companies back when they were singles, and we had full staff of auditors in the corporations I was working, and I lived audits night and day for 6 months out of the year. And so I know what's done, I know how the processes are. And so until you go through an audit, I don't care what type, what department of your business, this will never hit home until you're living it. And the moment you live it is when it becomes a reality of, now, is that why Deb drilled me all the time? It doesn't matter today, but it will matter at some point. And you might not even be working with me at that point. But if we've got your records intact and you take those with you for whoever you want to work with, at least this year, and when you come back to me and say, you were my accountant at that time, I've got an audit going, will you stand with me? I say, absolutely. I back my work. And so I will work with you on this year, but after that, you're on your own. I can try to guide you, but try to always do my books based on an auditing possibility going forward.
And that's the difference between compliance bookkeeping and audit-proof bookkeeping, or what Seth David calls bulletproof bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And that's something that I go through my client process onboarding. Is like, you may have been doing compliance before, and that may be what you're looking for. You just want numbers so that you can file your tax returns.
Mm-hmm.
But what you really want is audit-proof books, which are not the same. It's extra steps, but trust me, it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's what we tell our clients, that we want them all audit proofed.
Yeah.
Because that way, when I go through an audit, because they'll ask me and I'll tell them that their price actually does not necessarily include full-blown audits.
Mm-hmm.
Their price includes basic audits. As long as they give me the information I'm asking for, all of their audits will be basic audits, because I'll be able to bang through it because I have all the source documents. Should they choose, the odd time not to give source documents, and we're like, okay, fine, put it through. Now that takes it from a basic audit to a potentially more in-depth audit, because now we have to trace that back. I don't have all the information. So that's kind of where I'm with them is, as long as I have seen all the information and I have the source documents, that is what qualifies it as a basic audit. So yeah, so basically the type of thing that we're all saying, right?
Right. And in mine, with whatever client I'm working with and whatever software, I put notes in there that clearly says, for my audit trail myself. So if a client does leave, I pull out the audit trail, and in my notes, it clearly says client refused, or I asked this time and this time and this time and this time, date and time, when I requested this document, client refused to supply. And I clearly stated, if you are audited on these financials, the IRS is going to disallow these numbers. Point blank. That's how I put it.
9 times out of 10, like when we do a cleanup, we have a few different cleanup options, and one is more of a compliance, one is an audit proof, one is kind of right in the middle. But when we're doing the regular books, this is audit proofing. This is basically all we do. So if somebody says, I've got this, they can't find the receipt, we actually put it into shareholders. And what I tell them is, it's going to go into shareholders. They say, but it was a true business expense. So I tell them, you know what? That's a conversation that you can have with the accountant at year end. If the accountant is comfortable putting those numbers on the income tax return, they can absolutely do a journal entry and move it over.
Right.
So that's kind of the way we stand. And if anybody does not like that, we don't move forward with them as a client.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And that's it. Stacey.
For myself. And any work, because, like I said, an audit's not going to happen today. It's going to be in 3 and 4 years.
Yep.
And then I can go back and look at my information and say, hey, I forewarned you this could happen. Not going to promise it would happen, but it could happen. And tried to guide you at that point to say, you've got to have your information and your ducks in a row, or you're going to get audited and this will be disallowed. So make sure you've got this amount of money sitting in a slush fund to pay the penalties, fines, and interest going forward.
Yeah.
And this is just how I tell them, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Stacey, anything you'd like to add to that?
I love all of that. Took a couple of notes too. Well, I really like the language compliance books versus audit proof books. I teach a class to to students who are entering the self-employment program. So they're just brand new business owners, and they get a 3-hour bookkeeping class. Like, And I walk in there and I'm like, do not think that by the end of this that you are going to be able to understand your books. I'm going to spend the next 3 hours convincing you to hire somebody because, and if you get that information in the first 30 minutes, we can spend the next 2 hours in Tim Hortons. Like it's really, so I like that word because I'm always going at it from the audit. You know, I'm always talking about a CRA audit, and I'm always talking about an internal audit. I'm always, you know, these will not get passed in this audit. And so I like the term compliance versus audit proof. I've always done it, but now I have a language for it. And I really liked the ability of being able to translate from accounting to English. But I want it to go the other way as well. Can the bookkeeper take the English and go, okay, well, what we actually need is this, and to be able to explain it in accounting and to be able to talk to that CPA. I often get clients who go, could the two of you talk? Because you guys seem to talk a different language, and that would be great. And of course, I always come at it.
Too.
Yeah, I always come at it from the point of I want to educate my clients. We are doing this. I am going to do this. This is why I'm doing it. Here's the language that I'm using it. I don't expect you to know. I'm not teaching you a language class, but the next time you hear that term, I want you to be able to say, oh yeah, Stacy mentioned that. So I would always want to look for a bookkeeper that would be able to explain those. And if they don't know what a T account is, I don't even talk to them.
Like, this book that I wrote, and all of my clients get it. And a big part of the book, you know how most books tend to have a glossary at the end? Mine is near the beginning, and it has the definition. So when I say balance sheet and they forgot, they can look it up in here. When I say accrual basis or deferred expense or any of the fancy terminology, they have it here. So that way it's like their little guide. Because yes, that's true. I don't want to be stuck in the middle with the accountant as the translator. I want to empower them as well.
Yeah. And you know, I would, any bookkeeper who gets flustered when you ask why are they doing it that way, well, why do you want that? And if the bookkeeper gets flustered with that question, that somebody is like, no, I actually, yeah, okay, I'm going to explain it to you for the 10th time. Do you remember us talking about this before? But I don't want a bookkeeper that's going to hide what they're doing. They're not in a silo. They have to be part of the team. Sometimes, you know, when you're sitting there grinding through the bank reconciliations and some of those basic stuffs, you have to be in the silo, but that's just the behind the scenes stuff. So if I were looking for a bookkeeper, those would be the type of things that I'd want to talk to. And how good of a relationship can they have with the CPA?
Yes.
Right? I want
I work with lots of CPAs and on my clients' behalf, and I've went the rounds with quite a few of them that are not quite where they should be, especially for e-commerce and sales tax. And me and a New York CPA went the rounds, and when we was on a Zoom, and the client just sat, you could see the flushed look in her face as she lost all blood in her head, going with the arguments, unfortunately, that we was having. And I said, you know, you need to rethink, or at least go back and take another class on e-commerce and sales tax requirements. And you have got your client in a liability issue with the state of New York.
Go, Dad.
She said, what? And I said, yes. And I said I did a full audit for her and sent it to the CPA. And I says, you have got your client in a liability situation, and you need to rectify this right now. We're talking $1,700 right now, which it's not that much money, but in 4 or 5 years, when interest, penalties, and late fees all kick in, it's going to be substantial. And he advised her, let's not fix what we've done. Let's go on. And I went, this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong.
Wow.
So I've seen both sides of it. And it's like, I always look out for the client.
Yeah, I often get, because I get the new business owners, and we don't do T2 returns, right? And so, okay, you have a corporation. We're going to do all of the bookkeeping. I'm going to make it so pretty for the CPA. Your bill with the CPA, in theory, should be cheaper. in theory.
Mhm.
And so I have worked with a few of them, and I've come back to, you know, if people come to me and say, oh, well, I need one, I'm like, oh, I have my list of 3 that I'm going to recommend. I may work with 6 of them, but
Mhm.
here are the 3 that I recommend. You know, how advanced are they in terms of on cloud, right? Because
Mhm.
I was chatting with somebody the other day as I put out some prospecting emails in January, and I went to 3 or 4 of the CPAs I work with, and I'm like, you know, these are the processes we've put in. This is what we've been able to put to our clients. As you come into tax season, if you have any of those frustrating shoe boxes that you don't want to deal with, give us a call. We have some capacity, yada yada yada. And um, I got 3 very different responses. I had one saying, this is great. Can I give you a call next week? I had one going, oh, thanks. Yeah, it was great working with you on the blah, blah, blah audit. I'll keep you in mind. And then the third one, I didn't hear anything from. So the first one who said, I want to give you a call next week. And we talked for about an hour. And he's like, oh my gosh, I envy how much you've been able to get onto the cloud. And I thought we were ahead, but you guys are like way up here. And meanwhile, he had no idea. I was like, okay, these are all things I learned at conference in December. Like you know, my learning curve's pretty high, right? But whatever, I'm going to tell you I'm there. And he's been great. He's been a great relationship. I can pick up the phone. I'm like, oh, I've received this tax question. Can you help me out? Like, I think I know I don't know this. Can you? And he's been great. That wonderful relationship. The second one. The third one who didn't talk to me did the tax return for the one client the mutual client that we had. And in the middle of the meeting, he looked at her and he went, oh my God, I have never seen a cleaner set of books than this. My assistant, who actually does all the works, complimented your bookkeeper, and he doesn't compliment anybody.
Right.
Hang on, I got an email from her, and he like diverted the entire attention to that. So fingers crossed that something will
Nice.
happen. But it's those CPAs that I want to deal with. I want to deal with
Yeah.
the ones who appreciate what we're doing, right? So
Exactly.
what is the relationship between the bookkeeper and the CPA? Or I look at it as a marriage,
Yeah.
right? I'm trying to do rings. It's
I know what you mean. Yeah, we
yeah,
know what you mean. Yeah.
right.
No, like absolutely. That's really important too. There's a couple of accountants that I don't, 2 of them actually that I don't have real good relationships with. I just, you know what? It's unfortunately they are both old school, male, arrogant, and do not see the value in what we do. We are just data entry people. So
Don't get me started on that.
I refuse to speak to them. I still communicate with them every year. One has been, you know, like 10 years, and one has been, both of them have been almost 10 years actually, but I will only deal with them by email. The other one, I actually won't even deal with him. I will only deal with his assistant. And my clients know, you know what, I will do it, but this is why. And, you know, the one that I will only deal with his assistant, yeah, he did not want to give me so I emailed him and I said, I need the books, the year-end adjusting entries, the trial balance, please, so that I can make sure to do this because I see you didn't do the entries. He said, well, I can't send them to you without the client's permission. And I said, well, I sent you the books. I added you to their CRA account. When did this change? And he says, well, that might put you privy to too much information. What? So I forwarded that whole email to the client, and then I called her verbally and I said, this is why I do not like to deal with him. Then he had the nerve, he heard I wasn't referring to him anymore. He had the nerve to actually send me an email and say, Tanya, I heard you weren't referring anybody to me anymore. Why? Really? Really?
Oh,
You
my
want to
gosh.
know why? First off, there's this. Secondly, I have emailed you and you have not emailed me back. He then takes a screenshot of his, I guess he went into like his Outlook, put my name in and brought it all in. And he said, here's every email I've ever received from you. And I said, you see the ones that are bolded? Those are ones you haven't even read, let alone responded to. That was the last I've heard from him.
Really? Wow, he takes the screenshot, does not even bother to look at it.
Exactly. I'm like, really? But otherwise, for the most part, I do completely agree with a great relationship between the accountant and the bookkeeper. So every accountant I have met and connected with since I've moved to the cloud are absolutely wonderful. You know, and I've got great relationships with, it's only those two ones, which is just hilarious. But
You know,
other
Stacey,
things.
that thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, kind of back to what I had just kind of said earlier, was another thing that is important to look at is not necessarily the credentials of the person, because just because you have schooling, just because you have a designation, does not necessarily mean, or just because you don't have a designation, sorry, the designation in Canada, it's a test. It makes sure that you know everything.
And you're good
Again,
at the
it makes
test.
sure you know the practical, the theory. It doesn't make sure that you know the practical. So just a designation, just an education, or the lack of, does not mean anything. I do not have a formal education.
Hands-on
Circles
experience,
around people.
hands down, hands-on experience.
And that's exactly it. If somebody has an education and hands-on experience, or hands-on experience and their designation, absolutely. But just those, that means if they have that, that means they can take a test. They test well. That's all it means.
Yeah.
It does not mean that they are good, because I used to feel very inferior because I did not have the classroom education. I learned everything online through free resources. I would scour through, but my background is taxes. I learned taxes first, which meant I helped people through audit, which meant when I transitioned to bookkeeping 10 years ago, because I've only been bookkeeping 10 years because I chose not to, because the accountants, you know, that I was talking to at that point and the clients were not my ideal. So I'm like, I'll teach you how to do this and you can deal with the account yourself. But 10 years ago when I did that, what was my point? Where was my question? I didn't have that. Yeah, I didn't have the confidence. But then when I actually started, so I did mentor under somebody for the first year to officially. Oh, that was it. The audits. So that's where I'm big on audits, because I've been through audits. I know what they're looking for. So that's why everything was audit proofed, and it's just a matter of the organization. And then I did learn debits and credits afterwards, but I still learned it before I learned the software. But what I did is I actually mentored under a local bookkeeper for a year, and I reached out. She wouldn't let me pay her a penny for it either. And I just said, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. You know, so I didn't pay a penny for my education. Sorry, and then I do have a diploma. When I moved to this area, I did get a diploma. It was an online, it was a matchbook kind of education course. Matchbook cover course is kind of what I call it. And it cost me $200 to fly through and write an exam, because some people want to look for the diploma. But yes, just because somebody is classroom educated or has the designation, again, it means they test well. So you want to look.
So true, because I started with on-the-job training. A CPA mentored me. I learned on the job. Then 2 years after I had been working for 2 years as a corporate bookkeeper, then I went to college to study accounting. And in all those classes, I don't feel like I got anything useful out of it. I didn't learn anything new, and it was all theory, and very little of it had any application to the real world. And the things that applied, it was in T accounts, like if you're still doing a paper ledger, which nobody is.
Right. So
that is such a good point, because you need to have those street smarts. It's not just about the book smarts.
Right. So, yeah, exactly.
So you said something really important though, Tanya, is that you went out to go and learn. The people who go, oh, I know how to use, or I've used QuickBooks once or twice.
I'm a bookkeeper.
Right. And it's like, no, you got to learn a little bit. You got to learn the whys and the ins and the outs. And one of my best educations, and it goes back to those audits. I was working in the film industry, and every month we would finish a project. And when you finished a project, you had to go to audit. I was in audit every month. Right. And we got really good. I got really good and when I spoke to the CPA to go, okay, it's time to schedule this audit, because I was in charge of scheduling them. He's like, oh, but it's you. So that's okay. I know to only schedule a week, because they knew that we were just right on top of that, and we were looking for stuff. So
well,
that's huge.
And the practical is big, but yes, the theory is also important. Again, whether it's classroom theory, as long as you know the theory, whether you've read it, learned it yourself, because if you can't look at a balance sheet and determine what doesn't look right, now there's a problem.
Shouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So if you're talking to people, ask them to explain the balance sheet. Ask them to take a look at the balance sheet and the P&L and explain to you where the business is lacking and where you could get some definitely get some good out of it and pay some attention to the business. And as Jessica said, then if they can explain it to you, look at that and explain it to you in words that you understand. Now they can do the translate from the accounting over to the plain English.
Well, and like Jessica, she's got, I believe, a video that says, why doesn't my bank balance match my net profit?
I do. Because it's the most frequently asked
I
question. So now I
I
just say, watch this.
Yes. And that's exactly it. And it's like, if anybody asks me that again, I'm going to find Jessica's video and I'm going to send them right over there, because I only have a couple of clients that have done that. But it was like, boy, if I would have known about that, then I would send them right over there and said, you watch this and it'll explain to you exactly.
That's it. I'm going to just start getting those.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to start getting those videos. That's what I'm going to teach in class from now on.
Yes, it's Jessica's videos. But I'm getting a lot of people that want me, which is really strange. They're handling, their bookkeeping and everything, and their bookkeepers are contacting me and the owners themselves, and they just want me to handle the e-commerce side. That is a new trend that's going on. And I thought that was very interesting. And I've actually offered 2 or 3, or maybe it's 4 now, that I said, I might give this a try.
Well,
they don't want to lose their staff that's doing whatever, or their bookkeeper that's doing whatever. And I just say, fine, I will handle the e-commerce side of it. You guys handle your accounts receivables and payables and payroll and all your normal stuff. And as long as we can work together on the cash portion for, the flow of whatever's going on with Amazon, Shopify, and the rest, I've been seeing a lot of that recently. That's been a new trend. And I don't know if it's a COVID thing, but that's been the new trend recently.
Well, and if you've got that knowledge and you can create another service out of it, that's great. And it especially shows that you're an outside of the box thinker to be able to, move along with that. Okay. Hi, Jessica. Oh yeah. It's 4:45.
Well, there you go.
It's fascinating. But yeah, and that's great if you can do that, especially with today. If you can take something that you've got and again, try to help them meet them somewhere in the middle, still do that. Again, it shows you're flexible outside of the box. You still have to be, again, careful of parameters, engagement, liability. But as long as you've got all that covered, why not?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking,
this is interesting.
I'm thinking, how many clients do I run into that go, oh yeah, I'm going to sell on the internet and I'm going to sell into the US?
Now you got that.
Let's partner up on that one.
That's a big mountain to climb.
Yes.
As you see behind me, that's a big mountain to climb.
And thankfully, we're not there, but I do, when I go into these new entrepreneurs, my first question is, where are you selling? And I'm often asking, are you selling online? What province are you going to? Because now we have a jurisdiction issue. I'm going to sell online and it doesn't matter into the US. Okay, if we're talking into the US, here are some other things that we have to think about. And usually by the end of 3 hours, I just discourage.
Kansas has no thresholds. You sell anything to Kansas, you collect sales tax. There is no threshold in Kansas. Yes, they're having battles between the Department of Revenue and the Attorney General, but it has not been changed yet. So anybody selling into Kansas, you've got Nexus immediately. It started at October 1st, 2019.
Yeah. Well, see, that's where I don't envy you, Deb, because at least in Canada we have, and I did not do so well in geography, but what do we have? We have 13?
13. We have 10 provinces and 3 territories. Yes.
Yay! Okay, that's included none of it. Awesome. I did good. So, but you guys have 50 states. Am I right with that number too?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, close, but yeah.
And if I did a little bit of U.S. sales tax, 50 states, and sometimes those states have different counties.
Yes. Yeah.
And in Colorado, we have 72 home rulers. Yeah. So the state has its own, these are our rules, and each home ruler has, these are our rules.
And then you have the federal rules.
Yeah, and nobody cares what anybody else is doing. You're going to follow what we say today.
Yep. Yeah. So that's why I'm just so glad that we don't have that many rules. We've just got the provinces, and out of the provinces, more than, I'd say about 3/4 of us, I'd actually have to sit down and think about it, do the count. My brain's much with COVID and stuff going on, but 3/4 are either HST and GST. So there's only a couple of provinces that we're now dealing with a different tax that is like GST and PST. So HST is harmonized, which basically took our provincial tax and our federal tax and pushed them together, which is so much easier. But now some of them still have different percentages, but it's still a lot easier. So we've just got a smaller list. How you do it, I don't know.
Well, in Colorado, we have over 700 taxing jurisdictions. Oh my gosh. 700. Bear that in mind.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is.
It is
I won't deal with
absolutely-
these sellers. I won't deal with people who sell
And
online.
you got to try to explain it to these guys, and they don't get it either. I mean, it's like they have got to turn on this new sales tax hat and say that, you know, this is what's going on in the world, and if you're going to sell to Colorado, this is what you're going to deal with. And I just tell them point blank.
That's crazy.
And it's like, oh, okay, we didn't know that. And it's like, well, now
Yeah.
you do.
Well, and with e-commerce, the little bit of sales tax that I was dealing with, we were dealing with a physical product in a physical store in a physical jurisdiction. So while I had, I don't know, 75,
Yeah.
75 different jurisdictions to deal with, it was only 75 because I only had to deal with the one county in the one state, or maybe 3 counties. It is.
But when you're dealing with all of them, it's a whole different ballgame.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, but we went over, so we should call it.
By far.
10 to 5, and my tummy's actually grumbling because I haven't ate lunch or dinner. Well, obviously not dinner, but not lunch. I skipped lunch. I had a late breakfast though, bowl of cereal. But
Oh.
All right, so thank you, everybody. Thanks for making
weekend.
it today, and we will see you all next week.
Sounds great.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, stay safe and well.
And happy Easter. Hopefully
Oh
the
my
Easter
gosh,
Bunny
yes,
finds
happy
it.
Easter.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yes, happy. It's just another day for us, right?
Right?
So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So happy Easter, everybody. Stay safe. We'll see you all later.
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.